So yeah, this is just gonna be basically talking about how I got second place with Verdance over the draft at my locals tonight. It was an 8-player draft once again, and I drafted towards Verdance. I did a little bit of research beforehand into what the card pool looked like for Sild, and I noticed that a large quantity of people were stating that if you just weren't getting past lightning cards, you weren't going to be able to have a functional lightning deck. After drafting, I can tell you that's very much so true. So I went into the draft just staying away from lightning. And it didn't win me the whole entire draft, but it did get, it did get me to second place, so I don't think it overall was a bad strategy. Acilio obviously did win the first place. It was funny, no one drafted Acilio. We had 2 Acilio players the entire draft, and as out of 8 people, 2 Acilios. They had perfect decks. It was good, but my Acilio was my only loss, which was the one that won. I think let's go over matchups. My first matchup, well, to go off, the building section of it all, we pulled hot garbage. So like, I fully expected not to do well this draft. We didn't really pull anything like amazing. There was no mythic that just screamed, "Oh man, I'm really gonna turn the tide if I can get this card off." I just set my deck up to play very fatiguey with like amp burst moments, if you could say. So I'd pitch stack my amps, and always with a 0 cost arcane attack, and if I didn't have to block with my amplification cards, I would send a burst turn where it'd be like 8 or 9 arcane damage. But I mean, Earth was gifted a very good card set, because you could basically send a Battlefront Bastion 7/3 for 3, and that's a lot of pressure in itself, right? So the games were back and forth though, every one of them. Round 1 was against if it's the Earthen Runeblade, I forget his name. Florian? Yeah, Florian. And I ended up taking it, but barely. It was actually really crazy. Florian, we were trading consistently pretty well for a while. I thought I was ahead because I had gained some health, right? But we were trading consistently pretty well, and then out of nowhere, he just sends like a huge, like 12 damage turn. It was a great turn on his part. I ended up grabbing it back because of Decompose, and then allowing to heal. I ended up drafting 3 cards that allowed me to heal for 4 if my if my Verdance ability was active. That very much so, I want to say, saved me in a lot of my draft matches tonight. I ended up getting it, but again, that one ended with I had 1 health left and killed him on 2. So Florian was round 1. Round 2 was the Acilio I lost to. It was once again a very close match. I didn't really have any strong turns. There was nothing above average in the match that I can really say. I had blocked out as much as I could, but Acilio, he drafted again. No one had drafted Acilio in our pods, so the Acilio was just very efficient at putting out a consistent 2 to 3 card damage hand with us while still blocking with 1. And I played more of a battle package than an arcane package, where I did have arcane to boost my amplification spells, but it was more to end games or to push for larger damage, right? But Acilio, we ended again. I think he ended on 2, and I was dead. So 2-0. And then my last match was Verdance versus Verdance, so it was a mirror, and it very much so looked like the entire game I was not gonna get it. I thought the entire time that I was just too far behind. He got his Verdance ability online way faster than I could with his decompose, but thankfully I had pitch stacked enough to where I out-healed him and damaged him to keep myself in the game. And I don't know if he saw enough big attack turns. Not to say it wasn't close at all. Again, there wasn't a game I didn't have tonight that didn't end on one of us having 2 and the other dying. So it was an extremely close game. I was at 2 at one point, went back to 9. He was at 3, went back to 13. We had very just back and forth blowout turns, and it ended on it looked like a whiff, to where all he could really do was set a sigil and pass, and I pitch stacked a 5 amplification and 0 cost arcane spell. So I sent exactly 8, which was what he had, and had already baited any type of prevention he had. So I got the game that way. Very, very, very fun night. Very gracious of our hosts. Command Zone prized amazingly. We all had a great time. And again, being my second draft I've ever done for any of Fab was an enjoyable experience. I think it was more enjoyable than part of the Misfell. I would say like by like a large margin for me. It was more enjoyable, and not just because I did well. I think the heroes felt easier to draft and play with inside their limited card pool. So even with there was one thing that was odd, because like in the past, like gear was like super important, and don't get me wrong, it was super important in this draft, but it was specific gear pieces. You wanted like prevention gear pieces, not really anything else. So if you didn't get a gear prevention piece, you might as well have just tried to get a better attack or something like that. But yeah, so that's really it on the drafting. I recommend, as I said, I recommend it to all people who play the Flesh and Blood community. I recommend it to everyone who plays the game, obviously, and it was a fun turnout for me. I did say I would get around to doing a tier list